and welcome to this week's newsletter. The date is, I don't even know right now, October 6th. So it's the week of the 6th of October of 2016. So last week I was unfortunately not able to make an newsletter or recording of a newsletter, but last newsletter, I got a lot of feedback as far as helpful advice and recommendations, as well as people's thoughts towards a new direction that I'll be taking the newsletter. And I decided to get the best of both worlds and to match the video with the written diary. I don't even know what you would really call that. For everyone's enjoyment, because I got a lot of feedback saying that they liked the video, but they also like reading it sometimes because sometimes they can't listen to something at the moment. Whatever the reason might be, I decided to combine them. So I would put a lot more focus on the video itself, and then following below it will be a little bit more of a written write-up of what was discussed in the video. So a lot of the energy will come from the video, so if you want to see my wacky side or me not being able to pronounce certain things like I just kind of did, but you also want to just kind of read it instead, you get it all right? Let's begin. So since I missed last week, I wanted to kind of just run down a couple things that I actually wrote down because I am very forgetful and I tend to not remember what even happened a minute ago. So I decided to have a little list of things that I can kind of talk about what I did in that week. So last week, it was a very crazy, awesome time in Detroit, actually. There was Murals in the market. There was the design week, I do believe, and a few other things that I might be missing, but there was a lot going on. And what usually happens with me and, sometimes most likely with Francis is we come home and at night we want to do something, but we get really too comfortable with just being with each other instead of going and exploring other things and meeting new people and things along those lines. So this last week we dedicated a little bit more effort into meeting people in the area and going to actual events instead of moseying off to the movies or something. So one of the events that we did attend was Murals in the Market, and if you're not from Detroit or you've never been to that at all, basically there's a neighborhood called Eastern Market. It sounds exactly kind of what it is. It's to the east and it's a market. It's a huge place where Saturdays they have a farmer's market with a whole bunch of food and stuff along those lines, plus selling merchandise, and certain days of the week and depending on the season they'll have different things going on in that neighborhood. Otherwise, usually it's kind of quiet in Eastern Market when it's not on a popular day. So this last week, they finished up with, or whatever, you know what I mean. They finished up with Murals in the Market, and that is when they have a group of artists in the area, or sometimes they'll fly other people out, and they'll do murals in the market. They will do graffiti, not necessarily graffiti, but they'll do... I'm draining some energy out. I can't think of the word, but they'll do things along outside the buildings and whatever I'm assuming their heart desires. So there was a lot going on. It's filled to the brim with color and art from all shapes and sizes of people. So one of the nights towards the end of the week, because it's a week thing, they had Murals after dark. And a lot of people say, especially with models, they do what they're doing because they like attention. I keep forgetting that I'm recording this on video, so I'm not actually looking. They forget that, or they think that a lot of models love the attention, so that's why they do it, because they're in front of the camera, they want all eyes on them, and that usually might be the case, but for me, I'm a little bit different. I like attention, but I'm not obvious about it. I can get pretty shy and reserved, especially when I'm out in public or when I don't know anyone. So a lot of people tell me I would love to meet L.Shima, but I would be super shy and scared to do it. I'm yeah, I would probably be the same way, so don't feel worried at all. Anyways, so Murals After Dark was pretty awesome. It was just basically all of Eastern Market open late at night, which never happens. They had a whole bunch of artists painting right on the scene. They had a lot of vendors selling random stuff. They had a lot of stores that were open past hours. And so it was a really cool event to see and meet different Detroit walks of life, from people that live in the suburbs that come to Detroit when they hear something cool is going on, or from people that actually live in Detroit and just want to be surrounded in art and culture and things along those lines. So one of the interesting things that I've realized with attending a couple of these shows or these events is that I am being more open and being possibly recognized from people, and that has happened actually in the past, like, a lot. Like maybe a couple times, this literally last week, and that took me by surprise because I would always turn to Francis, and when we were around a lot of people, I know the numbers that I have on my social media, and if you put all those numbers in a city, then that's like overpopulating the city pretty much. So I knew the chances of somebody living in Detroit or visiting Detroit at that very moment could be likely, and I decided to also test it out and actually post that I'm going to these certain places on those days. Usually I never really give out that much information about certain adventure that I partake in until after the adventure is over with. So I kind of tested it out a little bit, and a few people have came up to me and said that they recognized me. Nobody actually personally, like face-to-face, came up to me, but I had a lot of written emails as well as another person that was there informing me that somebody knew of me. And it's crazy to me because, like I mentioned, I like the idea of attention, but just not, like, I can be really super shy and reserved. So the idea of knowing somebody knows me in a room versus them coming up to me and informing me that they know me makes me even more giddy. Like, I love just knowing, having the imagination that there's somebody in this room of 30 actually know me and recognize me. Versus like any of them coming up to me, that's when I get a little bit more scared of the idea because I don't really want them to come up to me. When I really do, I would be super happy and super nice about it, but I would be so scared and I don't know how to react and things along those lines. So it was just a different experience last week, and being, thrown into a situation like that. Well, not really. I kind of placed myself there, but realizing that there's people that, could possibly recognize me somewhere where I go. Like, I once had somebody recognize me at one of the airports, I think. I do believe it might have been in Austin, that just happened to see me while they were driving and passing by, and they decided to message me just to let me know, or just to ask to verify that that was truly me. And it's kind of cool. I haven't got to the point where it's like ridiculously crazy where like somebody will stop me immediately, like every 5 seconds. I don't know if I'd ever really want to get to that point, but just kind of now being somewhat like seen in the world is kind of cool. Like, and hopefully those people that see me can realize that I am a normal human being and that, we're just... Anyways, all right, trailing off because I feel like these newsletters need to be kind of swift, not very long. So I had a few other events that I attended last week. They were all pretty much the same. There was one that's always during Design Week. It was, fudge, I can't remember the name, but it was something doing with the road Livernois. And that was a cool little thing. It really felt more communitized. That's not a word, Shima. That's not a word. It felt like a lot of the community was at this event versus the Murals in the Market. Murals in the Market felt like it brought people from all over the place, but this one in the Livernois felt like the people that lived there were present more than, people from all over the place. So it was really nice, very homely, a lot of vendors as well, but again, it was more unique, I felt. And not super busy also, so that was a lot, like, I was happy because I don't do well with crowds. So yeah, and that was pretty much last week. I was supposed to have a gig that required me to dress up in geisha wear, and I even bought the makeup for it and was fortunate that I already had kimonos, but unfortunately that event got canceled at the last second. So that was totally fine with me. It was just unfortunate that I wasted $12 on makeup that I probably won't use again, but you never know. I might paint my face white for something this Halloween. Anyways, okay, so, because it's getting past 10 minutes, I need to learn to maybe make these newsletter videos a little bit shorter. All right, remembered. So, this week was also a little busy, and it still kind of is. I just got back from Boston on Tuesday evening, and that was amazing. First time in Boston. I've never been. I've gotten a lot of recommendations for places to see and places to eat from locals, and realized Boston, y'all have some crazy ass roads. Traffic also was a whirlwind that I was not ready for, but no joke, Boston, you got some interesting roads that I just truthfully cannot understand. But the reason why I went to Boston was to help celebrate with Francis while he was getting his award for the Boston Globe Horn Book Award. And that was amazing. It was Friday and Saturday in the Simmons College area, and being surrounded by those types of people. When I say types of people, I more mean the literature side of the world, like the ones that love reading, the ones that are in publishing, they're an author, they're an artist for children's books or picture books in general. They're, these writers, anyone along that literature world. I can't think of proper words. We know this by now, Shima. Anyways. So it was interesting because that's not a world that I'm part of. That's not even a world that I even touch. I try my hardest to read a book. I sometimes never even finish a book. But these people, I find out, a lot of them read 5 books a week. That blows my mind. I can't even read 1 book in a year's time. I'm exaggerating. But basically, it felt like, in my best way of describing something, it felt like a book club on steroids. I've never been to a book club, but just the idea of a book club, times that by like 5 million, and that's pretty much what you had. And a lot of these authors and illustrators for the books that were either getting honored or awarded, they were just so into that moment and talking about how they wrote something or how a process was done to make this certain paragraph or how this character became of who they were. And it was just interesting to hear it and see Francis, of course, getting his award, which was like this silver bowl that we are probably going to stick fruit in. I'm not even sure. But it was just an interesting moment, and I didn't get to see all of it on Saturday, but I got to see about half of it at least. And hearing the author and illustrators discuss how their stuff came alive was really interesting, because I was there when Francis was doing his children's book, or the children's book he's getting nominated at least, and I kind of saw what he went through, but also to hear what other illustrators for these other picture books went through. It was really fascinating. So being in Boston was super awesome. I highly recommend it to anyone traveling to go to Boston at least once in your life. I recommend myself trying to get there again. It was really awesome. Again, just not the roads were not as cool. Got to see a lot of historical buildings, took the Walk to the Sea tour with me and Francis and his parents. Got to eat England clam chowder. I don't know why I'm talking like that. Got to eat clam chowder, and I'm trying to remember some other things. Oh, another thing, if you go to Boston, it was the last thing we could have done was the maparium at the, don't remember, there's an Eddie Baker library. Can't remember her first name. Go check it out. It's only $6 a person, and it's only really for 20 minutes, but it's well worth it. I highly recommend it. I just was fascinated with it and blown away. I kind of already knew what it was going to be like, but then what it actually ended up being like was just a whole different ballpark. You can't take photos and videos, so that was a bummer. I wanted to Instagram snap it, but that didn't end up happening. All right, wrapping it up. And lastly, I am dolled up, kind of, sort of. I usually kind of look like this anyways for my podcasts, so I don't really know if this is considered dolled up anymore. But I look the way I do because I just got back from a photo shoot, and it's super fun. The photographer was super sweet. It was actually super last minute. How many times do I have to say super? Anyways, it was really last minute. Actually, the photographer emailed me last week when I was on my way to Boston. So I was on this trip and adventure. I didn't really feel like dealing with emails at that moment. So I waited up until yesterday to respond to a lot of my emails, and his being one of them. And he was very quick in his responses. He asked if he wanted to set up a shoot, or if we wanted to set up a shoot for today, this morning. And long story short, ended up working out perfectly. I was available. He was available. Bam, bada boom, bada bing. The shoot was only 2 hours, and it was like a 40-minute drive from where I lived. It was awesome. Guy was super sweet, like I keep saying. And I'm trying to think if anything super significant that happened. Nothing really. It's just different conversation pieces. When it comes to photo shoots, though, I will say that I don't shoot very often. I was going to have a shoot in Boston that unfortunately had to get postponed for another later time when I'm in Boston. If that even ever happens, hopefully. Cross my fingers. But I don't shoot that often. The last shoot after today's shoot that I had was probably, no exaggeration, about 3 weeks to a month ago. I don't shoot often when I'm home. Usually when I do shoot a lot is when I'm traveling. So any opportunity I have to do a photo shoot is really awesome. The only thing that's a downfall is watching what I eat before shoots. So as soon as the shoot was done, I was like gluttonous. I was like, oh my god, pizza, yes, hot dogs, yes, just all of it. That's my favorite part about shoots, is the aftermath. They're like, I'm exhausted, I'm gonna relax and eat my face off. Versus the one where you're like, I'm gonna cut a little piece of this chicken and eat it and hope it makes me survive until the shoot's done. So yeah, that's actually just what ended up happening. So now I'm home and I'm going to relax, eventually pick up Francis, and then, I don't know, do some other things in my life. So hope y'all enjoyed this newsletter. Hopefully it was not too long for the ones that like to watch the video. And yeah, I wish I can find a software that just takes exactly what I said out loud and makes it into letters, which I know that exists. I just don't really feel like searching it and downloading it. Alright, guys and gals, until next time, hopefully next week, I will see y'all again. Alright, toodles.